making workers, having an insane economy. That's fun to have. And if you can develop these, not only will you start being a good player, but you'll start realizing what your stylistic tendencies are. And remember, the big focus that you should always be doing is the little tiny stuff, the little tiny stuff, the little tiny stuff. Just getting an extra 15 minerals, because that SCV was mining a bit longer, setting that probe slightly later, all that good stuff. And remember, you don't have to be brilliant. You don't have to be fancy. Just look at a replay of a good player that you like watching and just say, I'm going to do that, and just try to work on it. So have a good balance between the big stuff, like the strategy. Should I be going Infestors or should I be going Spire? That's a big question. Exactly when you should build the Spire, that's a little one. So I will take a question. Okay, TKE Bobby WSU. Or Tikebabizu says, Day 9, you said always make a probe in SCV. I teach this to my low-level friends, but how do I explain to a Zerg when it's safe to power drone? That's far more complex than always. Do you think that's imbalanced? Yeah, definitely. Zerg actually intentionally chose a Protoss versus Terran because I wanted to dodge that question. But so what I would say is so this is the way I would explain to a Zerg player. Zerg are similar to the other two races in that you want a lot of workers. Period. You just want a lot of workers. So you should always be saying, as Zerg, is this the period of time where I make units? Excuse me. Or is this the period of time where I make drones? Explain it like that. That is always the fundamental decision for Zerg. And when I say fundamental, I mean literally what dictates all strategies for Zerg is when do I make units and when do I make drones. So what that means is that at any point in time in the game, if you're making 12 Zerglings, you should say, do I really need these 12 Zerglings? Or could I get away with making drones? Anytime you make drones, you should say, can I make these drones or am I going to die, right? Is he just going to attack me and I'm going to lose because I don't have anything? And what I always tell people is err on the side of making way too many drones. If you scout him and you thought he had 2 barracks but he only has 1, make some extra drones because it seems pretty good. I'm not saying that you need to have deep intuition as Zerg. You just try it. Just get out there and lose a couple times. But say to yourself, I'm trying to make a ton of drones. In fact, most notably, when I played Zerg vs. Protoss, I was just making too many drones. I was just making way too many drones. And I would lose to every 4 warp gate push. And I would start making Zerglings at around like 60 food. That's kind of high, right? 60 food. I would have like 2 queens, 56 drones. Zerg, done. Like, that's what I did. But what happened is I said, okay, I'm at 60 food. That's too late. All right, let's try making it at 40 food. All right, so I just arbitrary time, whomp, laid it down. So I once I hit 40 food, no more drones. Just made a ton of Zerglings, And this is the trap. Here's the trap. Don't fall for it. If you are a Zerg player, don't do this. If you're a gold, silver, bronze, platinum level player, and even a lot of diamond players, your tendency is once you start making units, you keep making units. You need to be aware that there are late periods where you make drones. So, this is what I did at first that was bad. I made Zerglings, and when the 4 warp gate push came, I crushed it. I had like 50 friggin' Zerglings, and at the end of the fight, I had like 45 Zerglings, right? It was a huge win for me. It wasn't like gentle in the slightest. So what then I did is I said, okay, what I'm going to do is when I hit 40, I'm going to make like 20 Zerglings, and then I'm going to go back to making drones. And if need be, I'm going to, make some Zerglings later on. But again, I say I make drones, and then I make Zerglings here, and then I go back and make drones. And that third step, the go back and make drones, the key, straight up, total, undeniable, most important thing for Zerg players to do. I want everyone to do this. Every single friggin' player should immediately go look at Brood War Zerg vs. Terran games, especially games on, I'll just say Match Point. You'll watch Zerg players get Mutalisks like really fast. They don't have many workers. They don't have many workers. They have like Zerglings and Mutas. But then they get the Mutalisks, and you'll just see them start pumping drones. You'll see them start pumping drones, just churning out drones. And then suddenly they'll get lurkers, and then they'll go right back to churning out drones, and then they'll finally switch over to 100% unit production. So notice that it was workers, Mutas, workers, lurker. That rhymes and that's so funny. Okay, it was workers, mutas, workers, lurkers, workers, units, right? It's just kept coming back to those units. And so those key powering units like mutas and lurkers that allowed you to do that. And of course in StarCraft 2, Mutalisk's another similar unit that allows you to go power. A little bit longer of an answer. Very important question to ask. And hey, cool. Hey, cool, I didn't go over 5 minutes in answering it. How unusual for day 9 to be somewhat terse. Okay, so here is something that is super important. And I've actually dodged this question in the chat before, intentionally, because it's my friggin' show. But lat pull down, which by the way is this. Oh, it works your back muscles, and then it works your wings. That's what I always call them, and it makes you look pretty hot. So lat pull down says, Day 9, what's your take on the whole Terran overpowered sentiment that seems to be going through the entire community right now? Okay. The reason I am taking this question is because today is low-level replay day. And it is so important that you do not fall into any toxic thought patterns at a low level. Because that will just poison your thought process all the way up. You will hit a skill ceiling, and you'll just be trapped there. And feel terrible. So this is let's do a story time. You're a Zerg player, and you've been playing against Terrans on the ladder, and you just keep losing. You keep losing, and you keep losing, and you keep losing, and it just gets more and more frustrating. You probably lose, you get mad, and you go, ugh, and you log immediately back on and play another game, because, no, damn it, I'm going to find someone I can beat. I'm better than this, you know? And what's actually happening at this point in time is that you're having a lot of adrenaline in your body, and you're focusing really hard, and that screws up the chemical balance in your body. Just straight up, pure and simple. It's just what's happening. But your brain, you start feeling really frustrated. You take that weird, gross feeling of emotion, you turn into a thought. Ugh, that's bad. Don't do that. Don't turn how you feel into a thought. It's just a fucking chemical in your body. Don't worry about it. It's cool. I could give you a pill that makes you feel the same way. That's not the first time I've said that before, right? But you turn into a thought. You go, ugh, damn Terran. And sometimes anger can be a good motivator. But then what happens is you start to think to yourself, wow, I'm just out of solutions. I can't figure out anything more. So what's so important about what I did today? I said, what about all that little stuff? What about that drone that you didn't have mining for that period of time? What about the fact that you built an overlord a little late? What about the fact that your queen was at 30 energy instead of 25 when you added the larva because you forgot for just 15 seconds? All these snowball into something huge over time. So let's focus on that little stuff. And then what happens is as you start focusing on little stuff, suddenly things open up. Things, that Reaper harass that was crushing your economy and it wouldn't work. And, oh my god, I couldn't possibly find a way to beat it. Suddenly, by squeezing all these little advantages, wow, I just have roaches in time. And now I'm not getting any of my economy affected at all. Oh my god, this has never happened before. And then suddenly it becomes really clear. And if you get into the habit of just thinking, here's a solution, here's a solution, here's a solution, I need to try this, I want to try this, I want to try this, I want to try this, you'll never run out of stuff to keep improving on, and you'll eventually be really good. The problem that happens when you say, oh, Terran imbalance, Terran's overpowered, is there are only so many times you can say that before you actually convince yourself it's true, and then you're just screwed, because every single time you're going to be playing, you're just thinking to yourself, oh my god, oh, and instead of saying, I need to make sure I get this timing out really well, you think, oh, no matter what timing I do, my roaches are not going to be up in time, I'm going to lose, it's going to be really bad, and that's so bad. So the problem that I feel is going on, it's actually serious, is that people have stopped experimenting with Zerg. They've stopped. They've completely cut it off. Zerg players try to get an expansion up, try to get 2 queens up, try to macro up and get a ton of drones. And when they can't do that, they go, oh, see, I couldn't just, it's just broken. Whether it is imbalanced or not, who gives a shit, really, right? We're all playing this game to have fun and to be better, and the 99th percentile mindset still has a million and one things you can try with Zerg. So, for instance, I was actually saying in the stream the other day, I have not been getting queens at all in Zerg vs. Terran. I maybe get 1 queen, but most of the time, no queens. None. And I have never gotten so many PMs. Just be like, replays, oh my god, And what bothered me is that people weren't like, oh, cool, let me go try that. It's just like, no, certainly not. I thought Terran was imbalanced. So all I really want to say is don't fall into that trap. Don't do it. Don't do it. You'll just be sad. Yeah, and sure, people are like, but it's my duty when the game is new to try to find imbalances and to let Blizzard know. Sure, you can think that if you want to, but I promise you're just going to be an unhappy person, right? And we play this game to have fun, so always convince yourself there are little things to do, because let me tell you something. There is no better feeling in the world than when you've been trying to crack a problem, and you do 10 little shuffles in your play, and it clicks, and oh my god, it feels like when you have that key and you're trying to get it in the door, and then suddenly, and it just purrs, and it's just like, ooh, good door handle, you know? Oh my god, it's just that nice visceral feeling. So, yes. I'm gonna take this last question by Strut3, who says, Yo, Day9, you've gone over macro a lot in your dailies, but what are some good ways to improve micro? It feels like micro always takes a lot of mouse speed. First thing I want to say, absolutely, I focus on macro for 2 reasons. 1, hey, if you macro, you have a lot of stuff, you win more games. And 2, because you're spending your money a lot when you're macroing, it opens your brain up to what is possible and what is not. With micro, it just feels good and feels sexy, but it's a very in-the-moment sort of thing. It doesn't have the big long-term benefits and long-term realizations that good macro does. But in terms of micro, good ways to improve your micro is to watch all your battles on slow. Watch all of them on slow. You heard me say that for a 1 to 2 week period when I played Zerg and Brood War, I only looked at my hatches and said, am I constantly making drones? Yeah. And every time a larva popped up and it went into an egg, I was like, yes, I'm macroing well. I do the same thing as well for battles and for micro. I watch all the units like a hawk. Like if I have Reapers running around the base, I'll in the game, I'll have the Reapers, going around. I'll bounce back to my base. I'll build some Reapers. I'll build an SCV. I'll build a depot. I'll build a command center. I'll go back to the Reapers, micro, come back, build a factory, go back to the Reapers, micro. When I'm watching the replay, I'm just looking at the Reapers, and I'm thinking to myself, this would have been a good thing to do, this would have been a good thing to do, that would have been a good thing to do. And then I watch other people's replays and see how they control their stuff and just keep watching. And this is going to sound silly, but open up just single player, play against a very easy AI, make some of the units and start fiddling around with them. One of the things I told one of my very new friends to do, not very new friends, but very new, an old friend who was a new Starcraft player, is I told her, just open up, single player, and I want you to just make 4 control groups of units and get used to moving them around. Just get used to going 1 click, 2 click, 3 click, 4 click. And I'd be like, all right, Chloe, quickly make a square with your units. And she'd be like, I want those 4 control groups there. All right, quickly make an arc. Make an arc. Quickly bunch them up into one spot. I want you to move 3 groups there and 1 group there. Just stupid little exercises that kind of get you used to the texture of how your units move. Also another thing not to be afraid of. This is perhaps the most important thing with microing. Perhaps the most important thing. Do not be afraid to select manually with a box some of the units and to individually or in very small groups move those. This is the problem you'll see. You'll see someone with 40 Marauders, right? I'll choose a smaller number, like 12 Marauders. And when they see units coming, the only technique they do is select all 12 of them, back up, fire, back up, fire. Back up, fire. Well, why? Why not have all of them attack and take this one at the front and pull it behind? So that way all the ones in the back are firing, you're luring all the units. Why not spread them out and do a concave? There's nothing wrong with just boxing 2 and pulling them off, and boxing 4 and pulling them off. Don't become so tied to the fact that you can select all of them by pressing 1 that you convince yourself that's the only way to control it. So you know what? I've been blabbering for way too long. I'm done. We're doing more low-level reps tomorrow, and it's going to be awesome. So definitely check it out. Thanks so much for tuning in, and goodbye.